Welcome back to the garden with me, Ed Brown, at the Athens County Extension Office here for Ohio State University. And this week I wanted to start some of my warm season seeds. This is the 1st of April when you're watching this. And we're going to be putting in tomatoes and parsley, and I have some peppers. And those are the main ones. I'm going to get started here early for the seeds so that you want to do this about 6 to 8 weeks out before you plant. And our planting date's around May 15th. So you see, I'm getting it a little tight, but I'm not worried if I don't get them in by May 15th. If it's a week later or so, that's going to happen. But I want to show you some of the tips that I use, the tricks to make sure I have successful transplants. And so one thing I do, I start off with a good seed starter mix. That's just easy. It says seed starter right there on the mix. And what makes it a seed starter mix, it has the nutrients that a plant needs, but it's really a finely chopped mixture that makes sure that it's very fine and there's not a lot of extra space. So the most important thing for these seeds is to get good soil contact, moisture contact, with not airspace in there, because we want the seed coat to break down and to germinate very quickly. And if you use a more coarse texture, or you don't get the seeds with a good contact with the soil or the mix, then you're going to have problems with some germination. I have that every year with people, their plants do not germinate, and they're asking me why. Like I say, I have all the tray cells here. I think this is a 72 cell tray. I've used 128, even smaller ones that you have to transplant more often. The most important thing for our warm season plants that we got to be concerned about, we want warm soil. These plants love 70 to 80 degree soil temperature to germinate. And if you have cooler soil, it'll happen, but it might take a lot longer. So I'm looking for 5 to 7 days to germinate. And if I have the right soil temperature, that will happen. Otherwise, it might extend itself to 10 days or more. Or the plants may not germinate, the seeds may not germinate, and then they just rot there, and then you're unsuccessful. One thing I do, if you have a warm location that you know the temperature can kind of stay up in a warm room or something like that, you can do it that way. One thing I use is a seed warming mat. I plug that in. You should have it so you can kind of keep an eye on it and make sure that there's nothing, heats up too much. These are pretty well temperature controlled, so they're not going to get too hot. They're designed for seeds. And I'll just put this under my seed tray and then let it go. Now you can see, I don't know, prior to this, actually, there are actually 2 trays here. So underneath this tray is a solid tray. And what I do, instead of trying to water from above, before I did all this, I filled that up with some water, not all the way, just a couple inches. And then I set my tray with my potting mix, or my seed starting mix, down into it, so that the water is absorbed up through the bottom, and that way that soil is moist. And I'll do that. I'll pick up one little end here and put the water, make sure it stays filled to a few inches. We don't want it soaking wet, but we want it moist while these things are trying to germinate. And actually, the first week or so, you want it really moist, and then once they get a little bit of maturity on them, then you can cut down a little bit more on the water as it gets closer to transplant time, getting them hardened off, used to lower water conditions. So that is a key there, to keep them water, but don't try to do it, because what will happen if you try to water from above, it'll dislodge the seeds, they'll float away, or they'll turn down. Now when I look at my seeds, remember our seed, this is a little tiny, this is one of our cherry tomato seeds, very tiny. Something like this, you're supposed to plant it about twice the diameter. Well, this hardly has any diameter. It's not even a 1/16 of an inch on this. So what I usually do on these very small seeds, I'll put them right on the soil, I'll push them down just a little bit, and maybe lightly cover them with some of the mix. We don't want them down there too deep at all. And I'll just put, we're trying to get 5 plants for the trials, and so I'll plant 10. Now you can plant 2 in each pack or each cell that you have here. Do it that way, and then whatever one looks better, you pull that one and you cut the other one, or I guess you could plant it and just have extra, or you can plant each seed in each cell, and then whatever one actually germinates, use those. Either way will work for you. So I'll just plant these here. And this is our Tidy Treat tomato here. And I won't do all these because it'll take me a while to do all these. And I'll just push that down there. And I'll do each of these cells here. And that's already 3 there. Sometimes these little buggers stick to my fingers. That is the one problem with these little guys. They can't stick to your fingers, so be careful. Especially as they get moist. And I'll continue to do that. Once I do that row, get that, I have a little marker I've made. This is out of old mini blind, and it says the name of the plant because you don't want to forget where you planted where. Now, since we have 2 varieties of each row, what I'll probably do here, I'll plant the other one that's over, about the second one over, so they don't get confused if I have them side by side. Something happens, the marker falls out, which has happened. I can know one's in the middle, maybe, kind of separation there. And that's just the way I do it to kind of help myself out. And once I get all these planted, we don't need light at all on these. We just need warmth. Now, once they germinate, I have a grow light, and I'll show you that in next week's episode. I have a LED grow light. I'll put just about an inch above this tray as they start to grow, and I'll just keep moving it up. You don't want it too far away from the plants, and we'll talk about that, is that the plants will start to reach for that light if it's too far away. So we'll show you that in the upcoming videos. But right now we're just trying to get all these planted and marked and then warmed up in a nice warm location. And maybe when we come next week, when I show you next week's video, we'll have some little plants. Now I will tell you, those who are doing our parsley, this is our Gigante d'Italia parsley. If you looked on my notes, the key to this is it takes from 3 to 4 weeks to germinate. So if you don't see anything for a while, don't think you've messed up. Just keep going. It's going to take off. So this is going to be the 1st of May, maybe, end of April, 1st of May, before I'll see these things start to germinate. So you just got to be committed to it. And don't worry, these do take a while. The parsley does. So that's just a little warning note for you. So you can, as you get into this, because most people haven't started their parsley or don't start a lot of parsley. They either buy it already germinated, like they do many of the other plants and stuff, and so they get the transplants, so you're not used to having to start from seed. So that's just one of the things with parsley. It does take a while for that seed coat to break down and for it to germinate. That's all I have for you this week. And if you have any questions or comments as you go along on your seed starting, just leave them in the comment section below. I'll try to address any issues that you have in the next episode next week. Thank you for all being here today, and happy gardening.